Those stories really do stand the test of royal time, don't they? Because a lot of people want to know exactly what the British monarchy thought about certain individuals. And when we often look at people who say Her Majesty the Queen had met, and she'd literally met everybody, even sometimes only for a nanosecond, at least she'd met them. These were the people that we were never going to meet. A lot of people were fascinated when, in the late 1950s, Marilyn Monroe, who was in town for Prince and the Showgirl, met, of course, Queen Elizabeth at a Royal Command film performance alongside Victor Mature. And of course, later on in life, people would have loved to have asked Her Majesty the Queen, what was she like? You know, because of course, one of the few rare people to meet her on such a glamorous occasion. Of course, sadly, Her Majesty the Queen never released a book and never gave interviews, so we can only surmise exactly what she thought about certain individuals. But of course, there are other world figures that Her Majesty the Queen, alongside the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, met. And it's now very well versed, in fact, exactly what Her Majesty thought of certain people. But this particular twist you may never have heard of. As ever, let me explain. Lovely to see you today, and as ever, thank you for taking the time out. I do love sharing these rather unique royal stories with you. As I say, I've been lucky enough to have access to so many things, particularly inside royal palaces, and you do get a flavour working and talking to people who were literally there in the moment of what things were truly like at that particular time in the royal reign. As I've often said, you know, the world was different. We were more deferential. To see Her Majesty the Queen roll up in a car and open something was really a major event. It still is today for His Majesty the King. But I'm not sure people feel the same way that perhaps you and I would have done in that particular era. It's kind of lost its gloss, hasn't it? One of the biggest people that, of course, basically Her Majesty met was none other than the Kennedys in the early 60s. When the Kennedys came to town, it was a huge event, let me tell you. Jack Kennedy was like a film star, a young, vibrant president of the United States, budding, of course, and basically was, you know, everything that you'd want them to be. According to a very well-placed source who I spoke to, Prince Philip liked Jack Kennedy because he felt it was good to have somebody younger leading the country, you know, taking a different direction. Obviously, Philip at the time was quite young himself, so you could understand how he felt. But there's a lot of speculation as to whether Her Majesty the Queen got on with the style icon that was Jackie Kennedy. You see, Jackie Kennedy was something of a film star herself in many respects. When she turned up to London, she had all the latest Paris fashions on her, and apparently she found Buckingham Palace dull, lifeless, and not as glamorous as she thought it was going to be. And it is said that she was less than complimentary about Her Majesty's ball gown. But again, Her Majesty was never really competing with anybody. She literally just had what she had to wear, wore it well, and, you know, that was her thing. I remember talking to someone who worked very closely with Angela Kelly, and apparently there was this great story said about the late Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Margaret Thatcher. And she put a call through, allegedly, to Buckingham Palace saying, we're both attending, you know, with this same event. Could you say what colour Her Majesty's wearing? And apparently the message back was, don't worry, Her Majesty the Queen never notices what anybody else is wearing. Wonderful put down if it's true, don't you think? Incredible when you think. But apparently, how did the Queen and Jackie get on? Well, on the surface, very well. But according to a very good Hollywood star that I became very friendly with, it did come out that Jackie felt very much intimidated. But there was a bigger reason behind that. Apparently Her Majesty the Queen never truly forgot that Jackie actually was sent to cover the coronation as a reporter when she was working for a media organisation. And Her Majesty the Queen was always very, very suspicious about perhaps, you know, revealing too much of herself. Normally she would let go with the First Ladies and become very pally. Eisenhower, for instance, she got on very well with him. You know, people like that she could really get a connection with. So much so, apparently, she even gave him her recipe for her famous drop scones. So you could see she was willing to be friends. But apparently with Jackie Kennedy, there was always a slight reservedness about it because she was concerned at some point that it could get into the wrong ears. That's not to say they didn't get on. They swapped pleasantries, cards, Christmas, all that sort of stuff. And apparently Her Majesty the Queen kept in touch with Jackie many years later. But it's fascinating to know how these stories truly emerge. One might suspect that there are two power couples at the very peak of their fame, their popularity, and more importantly, world dominance. Sadly for Jack Kennedy, his was cut very much short. Prince Philip was apparently very upset at the passing of Jack Kennedy and couldn't believe it. Her Majesty the Queen naturally sent her condolences and was very concerned exactly about what would happen to Jackie now moving forward. Because as she pointed out, she loved being the First Lady. It was the role made for her. So seemingly Her Majesty the Queen did have a lot of time for Jackie Kennedy, even though of course the gossip around the fact is that they didn't truly get on. Looking at the pictures, you could say they did, but who knows what truly happened behind Buckingham Palace closed doors. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.